My name is Terre Roche, and I'm here to talk about my studies with Charlie Banacos. I think I would describe myself as a primitive artist in music, in that I had no musical training. I didn't read music, but my training was in doing I guess folk music, singer-songwriter music with my sisters in a group called the Roches. And we wrote all our songs kind of by ear, and just finding things on our guitars. And harmonies, figuring out harmonies by what we heard. So when Garry Dial suggested that I study with Charlie Banacos, at first I thought, oh, well, he's a jazz player, and what he's going to teach is so complex, and a person like me who doesn't even read music, and so I was kind of, I thought, well, this is interesting, but so the routine was that you would send him a tape, literally cassette tape. This is how far back we're going. Of yourself playing, and then he would send you a lesson and a tape also with his comments about what he heard, and then you would have to do the lesson and send it back to him and play it onto the tape. So I played a song of mine, for him, and he sent back the lesson, and it took me 3.5 hours to do the lesson, to get through the lesson. I had to, read the notes on the staff, E, every good boy does fine from school, trying to remember where everything was. And you had to do everything in all 12 keys. So I had been coming from playing, folk music, style, guitar, chords, in open position. I knew some things up the neck that people had taught me over the years, but, like I would write something, I'm a folk singer, so please don't intimidate me. I might use those chords, D minor, G, 7, and C. That's what I knew them by, those names. So my first Charlie lesson was D minor 7, G7, and C. Only in that lesson, it sounded like this. So that was really new to me, the idea that you would maybe sing the same song, I'm just a folk singer, so please don't intimidate me. So I started to hear things for how they related to what I was already doing. And the thing that was great about Charlie was that at no point did he make me feel bad about what I was able to do. I worked very hard on the lessons. The very first lesson, I think I called Garry on the phone and just started crying and said, I can't do this. But I was so proud of myself that I, kept it up. And we went on for 5 years with lessons, me and Charlie, during which time I wrote songs that were very different from what I had written before, like this one. The fantasy is crumbling, the piggy mask isn't working for me anymore. I'd like thing that I would not have written before, because I didn't know those kind of chords. So it was an eye-opening with Charlie, but an interesting aspect of it was that after about 7 or 8 lessons, he drew a picture, a little cartoon of Jerry Bergonzi, the saxophone player, and he made a comment about Jerry that was not very flattering. Turns out that he and Jerry were very close friends. So my next lesson, I sent the lesson in, and then he wrote another lesson back to me with another picture of Jerry Bergonzi. And something else, kind of jokingly unflattering about Jerry Bergonzi. Now, I had never met Jerry Bergonzi or Charlie Banacos. I had never met them. So after about 5 of these little pictures, I sent one back to him. And by the end of the 5 years of studying with Charlie, there was a whole book of pictures of Jerry Bergonzi that we went back and forth with, these drawings, and they were very creative. Like, he'd do something very bizarre with one of the Jerrys, and then I'd do something even more bizarre. But at the same time, I'd send in my little cassette with the chords and the soloing, over the chords that he was giving me to do. And the picture drawing started to become part of my process of learning what he was teaching me, because I started to make pictures of the fretboard and the relationships between all the intervals on the fretboard. And this turned into a whole product that I wound up developing called fretboard vitamins. And fretboard vitamins basically came out of my lessons with Charlie, and it was me explaining to myself how to relate, coming from what I was coming from with the folk kind of chords and things, and trying to relate all of this complex harmony and numbers, sharp 11 and, flat 3, flat 5, and trying to see it on the fretboard. And that's what fretboard vitamins turned into, this sort of game that you play with yourself, where you actually just look at 2 intervals and contemplate them for a few minutes at a time. And in that way you learn where things are on the fretboard, So if I want to know, so then like 1, 3, 5, 1. I started to think in these numbers, 1 flat 3. So once you could find those things in relation to each other, then you could make your own chords. You could say, well, I want to see if I can make myself a E 9th chord. And so, I was learning what it is an E 9th chord, so I knew I needed a 1, a 3, a flat 7, and a 9. And so how would I know where those things were was what the fretboard vitamins was kind of like, this link between what I already knew and could do and trying to get on board with the Charlie lessons. So I really owe a great debt to Charlie Banacos for my own musical journey. I feel like my songwriting got much better, and the whole thing got much more fun, because I realized that, I can go like this. And I don't have to even know what that is. But Charlie kind of encouraged me to the point where I thought, I don't have to know what that is. I can go back and figure out what it is. But I can write a song. Here come your tears. I'm so sorry. notes. So, you know, like when I would go, that's the note that changed. So you could just play it a few times rather than feel like it had to be anything anybody else told you to do. So thank you, Charlie.